By the time a gladiator actually stepped out into the arena, a lot of the deciding had already been done somewhere else. He did not walk in and size up a fight he could shape from scratch. The gate opened when it was supposed to open. His name was announced, however. They wanted it announced. The opponent was the opponent. The weapons were the weapons. Even the order of the show had already pushed the mood in one direction or another before he was visible. So his first job was not choosing. It was reading the room fast. How loud was the crowd already? Was the man across from him fresh or breathing hard from nerves? Was there dust hanging low? Was the sun in a bad place? He had a few seconds to stand correctly, look steady, and act like he belonged inside a setup other people had built for him. And he had to do that in gear that was already telling him what kind of movement he was allowed. A heavy shield meant one sort of fight. A shorter sword meant another. A helmet with a narrow grill did not just protect him. It cut down what he could catch out of the corner of his eye. He could hear the crowd better than he could see some angles. A turn that would be easy bareheaded became clumsy once the helmet shifted, and the shield dragged a shoulder late. That is why so much started with posture. Not because posture was decorative, but because a man in restricted gear needed to buy little pockets of time. He showed the shield a certain way. He kept the front foot careful. He made the other fighter guess whether he was about to press or just reset. It looked like confidence. A lot of it was really just making up for the fact that clean improvisation was hard once your own equipment started arguing with your body. Then the matchup took over. If he was facing a longer reach fighter, he did not get to pretend range was negotiable. He had to enter that range eventually. If he was the heavier one, he could not spend forever circling either, because heavy gear turns delay into work. Every extra step costs something in the legs. Every cautious half-turn heats the body up a little more. Very quickly, waiting stops being a neutral decision. You can picture the awkwardness of that. One man trying to stay just outside, the other trying not to lunge too early. A couple of probing attacks, maybe nothing clean, but already one fighter is being nudged into the tempo he wanted to avoid. If he backs away too much, he burns energy and shows caution. If he comes in too bluntly, he gives the other man the exact exchange he wants. So he starts making little compromises instead. He retreats at an angle so it looks planned. He raises the shield high for a moment, not only to block but to hide how hard he is breathing. He gives one sharp step forward just to stop the other man getting too comfortable. None of those are grand decisions. They are tiny repairs. He is patching over the fact that the fight is already narrowing. Then the floor starts helping one man and hurting the other. Arena sand looks simple until it has been worked over. Once it is churned up, kicked loose, darkened by sweat, blood, and dropped bits of equipment, it stops feeling even. A planted foot can slide just enough to spoil a swing. A pivot can catch. A man can think he has room and then feel the edge barrier behind him before he expected it. That changes behavior fast. A fighter who was pressing a second ago suddenly goes guarded because one bad step told him his balance is not reliable. He shortens everything. The stance gets uglier. The blows get less ambitious. He may not even be thinking about winning cleanly for the moment. He is trying to stand correctly again before the other man notices how unstable he felt. The other man usually notices. Fighters watch feet. They watch recovery after a miss. They watch whether the shield comes back to position on time. So one slip creates a second problem. Now, he is not just dealing with bad footing. He is dealing with an opponent who starts testing that side, feinting to make him move the weak way again. And because the sand keeps shifting, there is no permanent fix. He cannot settle it once and be done. Every turn remakes the surface. If a dropped weapon has dragged a groove, somebody catches it. If blood has slicked a patch, somebody discovers it at speed. A style he trained to use on firm ground can collapse into shorter, meaner survival movements in about 3 steps. Even when both men wanted a pause, they did not fully own that either. There were officials in the arena watching the exchange, carrying staffs, and they were not decoration. They could separate fighters. They could break a clinch. They could stop a messy moment and send the men back into a cleaner pattern. So even the rhythm of action and pause had somebody standing over it. That created its own awkward habits. A fighter could not just hold, smother, and stall indefinitely if that was what suited him. He had to feel for how much clinching would be tolerated before a referee stepped in. He could not openly refuse the shape of the contest because the correction happened in front of everybody. If an official prodded him apart or motioned him back into position, there was no private argument about it. So he had another layer to manage. Attack enough to satisfy the form of the fight. Defend enough to stay alive. Do not lean too obviously on tactics that look evasive or stubborn under supervision. He is now dealing with an opponent, his own gear, the floor, and a man with a staff who can reset the whole exchange because it has drifted into the wrong kind of struggle. Those resets mattered more than they look. Sometimes a fighter had finally worked his way into a safer, ugly distance, chest close, weapons cramped, only for the action to be broken and restarted where the matchup hurt him again. He did not get to keep every advantage he clawed out. A lot of it could be wiped away by being made to separate. Then there was the crowd, which meant every sensible survival move had to pass a second test. A retreat might be smart in pure fighting terms. A pause might be exactly what his lungs needed. But if too many people read it as fear, the whole feeling around him could shifty. The same step back that buys 2 seconds physically can cost him socially if it looks wrong. So men performed confidence they probably did not feel. They stood taller than their legs wanted to stand. They advanced once when they would rather have rested. They made a show of receiving the next exchange instead of showing how badly they needed distance. It was not just theater layered on top of fighting. It fed back into the fight. Looking unwilling could become its own danger. You can imagine the strain of that. He is exhausted, maybe blinking sweat out from behind a grill, maybe hearing the crowd react before he can even tell what they reacted to. So now he starts managing appearances while trying not to get hit. He cannot simply survive. He has to survive in a way that still reads correctly from the seats. That affects small things. How quickly he gets up from a stumble. Whether he turns his back even for an instant. Whether a defensive crouch looks disciplined or looks broken. Two positions that feel almost identical in the body can look very different from above. One says controlled retreat. The other says he is slipping out of the fight. And once that public reading starts to go against him, he has fewer safe places to hide. If he hangs back, it confirms the reaction. If he rushes to reverse the impression, he takes a risk he may not be physically ready for. So the crowd does not just add noise. It squeezes the middle ground out of him. He gets pushed toward bolder, cleaner gestures because subtle caution does not always play well in an arena. Then, one small accident can take the rest. A shield strap gives way. A weapon glances off badly and shifts in the hand. Sand gets into the eyes under the helmet. A leg takes a hit, and suddenly the body is no longer making equal promises on both sides. After that, movement shrinks. The man who had a whole circle to work in now has a narrow safe arc and everybody can see it. That is when the fight becomes brutally practical. Can he still turn toward danger, or only away from it? Can he lift the shield high enough one more time? Can he keep the injured leg behind him without making it obvious? He is not choosing from a full menu anymore. He is choosing between the 2 or 3 motions his body still permits still. The opponent sees this too, of course. If the shield drops low and stays low, that side gets probed. If the bad leg lags, he gets driven toward it. If the vision is blurred and the reactions are late, the attacks become simpler and more direct. There is nothing abstract about it. One flaw appears, and the whole exchange starts bending toward it. And even then, losing does not hand control back to the losing man. If he is beaten down to the point of surrender, there are still forms to follow. He may kneel. He may raise a hand. He may try to hold himself in a composed way instead of collapsing into panic. Even in that condition, he is still performing, because how defeat looks can matter to the people judging it. That is another awkward thing to picture. A man hurt, winded, maybe half blind, trying to present defeat properly. He has to make his appeal legible. Too wild, and it looks disorderly. Too slow, and the opponent may not wait. He is trying to communicate through pain while the arena is loud and everybody above him has their own opinion about what they are seeing. And there is no single person he can appeal to as if this were a simple private surrender. Officials are involved. The sponsor is involved. The crowd is reacting. The owner has interests. The opponent is standing right there, also making judgments second by second. So even the act of asking for mercy is not one decision that ends the matter. It passes through other hands first. If he is spared, that still may not look restful from his side. He might have to remain composed while waiting for the decision to settle. He might have to stand or be helped up in front of the same people who were shouting a moment ago. He has not suddenly become a free man making his own next move. He is a damaged man waiting to be told what the next move is. If the decision goes the other way, the same loss of choice continues. A beaten fighter may know what is coming before it comes, but knowing is not deciding. He is held in place by injury, position, etiquette, and the fact that everyone around the moment has more authority than he does. The fight began under arrangement. It ends under arrangement too. Even survival inside that system had its habits. Fighters learned to conserve where they could before the gate opened, because afterward conservation got harder. They learned how to look steady while adjusting grip, how to mask a bad breath, how to fall in a way that let them rise fast if possible. They learned not because these restored freedom, but because they bought a few seconds inside a setup built to keep taking options away. And those seconds could disappear one by one. First the pairing narrowed things, then the gear narrowed them more. Then the opponent pushed the pace. Then the sand spoiled a foot. Then an official broke a hold. Then the crowd disliked caution. Then a wound closed off half the body. Then surrender itself had to be done under inspection. So when people imagine a gladiator choosing every move in some open contest, it was not really like that once he was out there. He had skill, yes, and nerve, and habits drilled hard enough to carry him through confusion. But from the gate onward, he was mostly negotiating pressures he did not set and could not dismiss. And the worst part for him was probably how ordinary that loss of control could feel in the moment. Not one grand instant where choice vanished. More like one thing after another. The helmet makes him miss an angle. The shield slows the turn. The reach is wrong. The footing gives. The referee separates. The crowd wants more. The hand slips. The leg goes weak. Then he is kneeling, waiting to see what other people have decided to do with him next.